The political world was thrown into chaos when news broke that Representative Jasmine Crockett was being sued by Karoline Leavitt for a staggering $80 million. The lawsuit immediately went viral, dominating headlines and social media feeds. People began to ask, what could possibly spark such a high-stakes legal battle between two public figures? As the details emerged, it became clear that this wasn't just about money. It was about power, influence, and reputation. Jasmine Crockett, a Democrat from Texas, has been known for her fiery rhetoric and progressive stances. In recent months, she has gained national attention for her bold comments on race, justice, and women's rights. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt, a rising conservative star and former Trump White House staffer, has been building a name for herself by directly challenging left-leaning narratives in the media and politics. The clash between them seemed inevitable. Tensions between the two began to escalate after a televised panel discussion, where Crockett reportedly made remarks that Leavitt described as defamatory, malicious, and racially charged. While the full recording of the incident circulated widely online, opinions were split. Supporters of Crockett defended her statements as passionate political speech. Meanwhile, Leavitt's followers saw the comments as an unacceptable personal attack and demanded accountability. Within days, Leavitt's legal team filed a lawsuit in federal court, alleging defamation, emotional distress, and reputational damage. The figure attached to the suit, $80 million, shocked even political insiders. Such as some suggested Leavitt believed her public image and future political ambitions had been deeply harmed by Crockett's statements. Legal analysts began debating whether the suit would hold up in court or if it was more of a political stunt. Crockett's camp responded forcefully, calling the lawsuit frivolous, politically motivated, and an assault on free speech. Her legal representatives argued that as a public figure engaged in political discourse, she had every right to express herself, even in provocative terms. They warned that if the courts began punishing politicians for their rhetoric, it could set a dangerous precedent and chill public debate. Media coverage exploded. Mainstream outlets picked up the story, and cable news began running segments dissecting the legal filings. Pundits on both sides of the political spectrum weighed in. Conservative voices hailed Leavitt for standing up to toxic rhetoric, while progressive commentators accused her of using the courts to silence black voices. The cultural divide around the case grew more intense with each news cycle. On social media, the backlash was swift and polarizing. Hashtags like Cancel Crockett and Leavitt Lies began trending simultaneously, depending on which political echo chamber you followed. TikTokers, YouTubers, and Twitter influencers all jumped into the fray, posting reaction videos, commentary, and memes. What began as a legal dispute quickly morphed into a cultural flashpoint with nationwide attention. Crockett held a press conference outside the Capitol, flanked by supporters and fellow members of the Congressional Black Caucus. She did not mince words. "This is not just about me," she said. "This is about every woman of color who dares to speak truth to power. We will not be silenced by lawsuits designed to intimidate us." The crowd erupted in applause, but the legal stakes remained high. Leavitt, meanwhile, made her case during a primetime interview on Fox News. "This is not about politics," she claimed. "This is about decency, truth, and consequences. No one should be allowed to publicly slander another person and walk away unscathed. Jasmine Crockett crossed a line, and I'm holding her accountable, not just for myself, but for every American who's tired of double standards." Legal experts began analyzing the complaint filed by Leavitt's attorneys. It included detailed transcripts, social media posts, and video excerpts that they claimed supported their claims of defamation. They also argued that Crockett's remarks caused measurable harm to Leavitt's ability to secure media contracts, endorsements, and future political roles. They were seeking not only damages, but also a formal retraction and public apology. Crockett's team fired back with their own counterarguments. They claimed Leavitt's lawsuit was not only baseless, but also a calculated attempt to boost her own political profile ahead of a rumored Senate run. "If she wants attention, she's got it," Crockett said during an MSNBC interview. "But don't try to play the victim when you're weaponizing the legal system to suppress dissent." Her supporters praised her for standing firm. As court proceedings loomed, both women began fundraising off the controversy. Leavitt's campaign sent out emails calling for donations to fight liberal lies and restore truth. Crockett's camp launched their own fundraising page, using the headline "Silenced? Not Today." Political strategists noted that both women were effectively turning a legal conflict into a political opportunity, each playing to her base and raising substantial campaign money in the process. The first court hearing was set for early summer. Crowds gathered outside the courthouse, with protesters from both sides holding signs and chanting slogans. Inside, the courtroom was packed with journalists and observers hoping to catch a glimpse of the drama. The judge urged decorum, warning both legal teams that the case would be decided by facts and evidence, not soundbites or media spin. Leavitt's lawyers opened with a detailed argument that Crockett's statements were not protected by political immunity because they crossed into personal defamation. They cited case law and presented examples of how her remarks had directly impacted Leavitt's contracts with conservative media outlets and nonprofit organizations. They also claimed that Leavitt received threats and harassment after Crockett's comments aired nationwide. In response, Crockett's attorneys presented a First Amendment defense, asserting that political speech, even when harsh, is protected under U.S. law. They played full clips from the interview in question, arguing that Crockett's statements were taken out of context. She was responding to a question about structural racism in media, one attorney said. She never directly attacked Ms. Leavitt's character, only the system she represents. Outside the courtroom, emotions continued to run high. Protesters in support of Crockett accused the justice system of bias, claiming Black women in politics are disproportionately targeted for speaking out. Others shouted slogans defending Leavitt's right to her reputation and safety. The courthouse became a flashpoint in a larger cultural battle over race, gender, and political speech in America. As the trial entered its second week, the judge called for a mediation session. Both sides agreed to sit down privately and explore a potential settlement. While many hoped for a resolution, insiders revealed that the meeting quickly broke down. Crockett refused to issue any apology, and Leavitt insisted the damages she suffered were too severe to walk away from. The legal war would continue. Political commentators began asking whether the case was less about justice and more about 2026. Both Crockett and Leavitt were rumored to be eyeing higher office, Crockett possibly considering a Senate seat in Texas, and Leavitt preparing for a national media campaign or even a vice presidential consideration. If true, the lawsuit could be a high-stakes chess match in the world of future political power. The internet remained divided. TikTok videos mimicked courtroom scenes, while Instagram pages created memes out of the testimonies. On YouTube, creators published reaction videos dissecting every legal move and body language cue. The courtroom may have been about law, but the internet turned it into performance art. The audience was global, and both Crockett and Leavitt became symbols of larger ideological battles. 20. Despite the public frenzy, legal experts reminded viewers that defamation suits involving public figures are notoriously hard to win. Under U.S. law, the plaintiff must prove actual malice, meaning the speaker knew the statement was false or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. It's a high bar, one analyst noted, and political speech has traditionally been given wide leeway in American courts. Leavitt's team introduced expert testimony from a media consultant who testified that the backlash against her client significantly affected her branding and sponsorship opportunities. The consultant presented a report detailing lost income estimates and projected damage to Leavitt's public image. The figure came close to $78 million, shockingly close to the lawsuit's demands. The courtroom buzzed as people realized the numbers weren't just symbolic, they were calculated. Crockett's side brought in a constitutional law professor to argue the broader implications of the lawsuit. The professor warned that punishing elected officials for their political rhetoric would threaten democracy itself. If we criminalize passionate speech in the heat of debate, we might as well dismantle the First Amendment, he stated firmly. The courtroom grew quiet as the weight of his words settled over the crowd. Throughout the hearings, both women remained poised, but their body language told a deeper story. Crockett leaned forward, fiery in her defense. Leavitt sat still, cool and controlled. Cameras captured every glance and reaction, fueling speculation about their emotional states. Commentators broke down their outfits, facial expressions, and tone, turning courtroom drama into media theater. The nation watched, waiting for someone to break. Then came the unexpected leak. An anonymous source provided a copy of internal messages from Leavitt's team suggesting the lawsuit was strategically beneficial for media traction. Though authenticity wasn't confirmed, it raised eyebrows. Crockett's supporters seized the moment, demanding the case be thrown out. Leavitt's team denied any wrongdoing, insisting the leak was fake and part of a coordinated smear campaign. Despite the chaos, the judge remained focused on the legal merits. In a procedural hearing, she denied Crockett's motion to dismiss the case, stating that it warranted a full trial. This decision was a turning point. Both sides geared up for a prolonged legal battle. Political tensions escalated, and the courtroom became a microcosm of America's ideological divide. Race, gender, speech, and identity all clashing at once. Media coverage intensified. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and independent creators hosted daily panels. Analysts called it the trial of the decade for political speech. Some worried the case could open the floodgates to similar lawsuits. Others hoped it would force more accountability in political discourse. Either way, the stakes were historic, and the public sensed it. Every detail of the case became a talking point. Crockett launched a new initiative called Defend the Voice, aimed at protecting women of color in public office from legal intimidation. The campaign gained traction, with endorsements from celebrities, activists, and even some moderate politicians. "This isn't just about me," she repeated often. "This is about every voice that's been silenced or threatened when it spoke truth to power." The message resonated. Leavitt also capitalized on the spotlight, giving speeches at conservative conferences and universities. "You don't get to smear people and call it politics," she told one crowd. "We must restore decency and accountability in public life." She framed herself as a defender of truth, positioning her lawsuit not as censorship, but as moral correction. Her base rallied behind her with renewed energy. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled that major donors on both sides were getting involved. PACs began aligning with Crockett and Leavitt, sensing a larger culture war brewing. Funding flowed into both legal teams, allowing for high-powered attorneys and media consultants. What started as a personal dispute had morphed into a national proxy battle between left and right, both sides unwilling to blink first. As weeks turned into months, the trial hit a crescendo. Final arguments were presented in a packed courtroom. Leavitt's team argued that reputations matter and that Crockett's words went far beyond policy. Crockett's lawyers countered that the lawsuit was political theater disguised as legal action. The judge would soon have to decide, was this defamation or democracy in action? The judge requested a 10-day deliberation period to review all evidence before issuing a final decision. The announcement caused a media frenzy. Pundits speculated on what the ruling could mean for future political discourse. Some legal scholars warned that a ruling in favor of Leavitt could open a Pandora's box for lawsuits against every outspoken politician in America. During this quiet period, both women retreated from the spotlight. Crockett returned briefly to her home district, meeting with local supporters. Leavitt visited her family and gave no public statements. It was a rare pause in an otherwise hyperactive news cycle. People held their breath, knowing the judge's ruling could set precedent for generations to come. 10 days later, the decision dropped. The judge ruled partially in favor of Leavitt. She dismissed the $80 million demand as excessive, but agreed that certain statements made by Crockett could be interpreted as defamatory if taken out of context. The court ordered Crockett to issue a written clarification, but no financial penalties were imposed. It was a mixed result, neither a win nor a loss. Leavitt declared victory. "This ruling proves that words matter," she said at a press conference. "I didn't pursue this for money. I pursued it for accountability." Her supporters cheered. Though she didn't receive monetary damages, she claimed a moral and legal win. Conservative media echoed her sentiment, framing the case as a wake-up call for reckless political speech. Crockett also spoke out. "Let's be clear," she said. "No one silenced me. The court affirmed my right to speak, but I'll always choose my words carefully. This isn't the end of my fight. It's only the beginning." Her base rallied online, praising her resilience. For many, the outcome felt like validation that the legal system didn't crush her voice entirely. Public reaction was mixed. Some viewed the ruling as fair and balanced, while others saw it as a dangerous gray area. Legal experts debated whether it would become case law cited in future political lawsuits. Meanwhile, activists on both sides used the ruling to support their narratives, either that justice had been served or that freedom of speech was under siege. In the months that followed, both women released books detailing their perspectives. Leavitt's memoir, titled Truth on Trial, became a bestseller among conservative readers. Crockett's response, still unshaken, was widely praised in progressive circles. Book tours, speaking engagements, and interviews kept the controversy alive in the public imagination. The courtroom battle had become part of American political folklore. Podcasts and YouTube channels produced full documentaries on the case. Some took a legal approach, breaking down arguments and rulings. Others leaned into the drama, presenting the case as a modern political soap opera. Viewers couldn't get enough. The story had everything: race, gender, law, politics, media spin, and power struggles. It was the kind of real-life story that kept evolving. While the court drama was over, the political fallout was not. Crockett began gaining traction as a potential candidate for national office, buoyed by her resilience and bold messaging. Leavitt continued to rise in conservative circles, possibly eyeing a return to the White House in an advisory capacity. Their profiles had both grown significantly, ironically, because of a fight meant to bring one of them down. Political scientists began using the case in university courses. It was held up as a landmark in defining the limits of political speech and the power of media narratives. Students debated whether Crockett had gone too far or whether Leavitt had weaponized the legal system. The complexity of the case made it a valuable case study in political communication and law. The hashtag Crockett versus Leavitt trended again on its one-year anniversary. Memes resurfaced. Fans from both camps posted retrospectives. One Twitter thread went viral for explaining how the case had changed the political landscape, pushing both parties to reconsider their public messaging strategies. What started as a single exchange between two women had echoed through the entire system. In Washington, colleagues of both women expressed mixed feelings. Some respected how they had navigated intense scrutiny. Others worried the case set a precedent for more public feuds ending up in court. Privately, some politicians were advised to tone down their rhetoric in interviews and social media, fearing a similar fate. The age of unchecked political talk was starting to fade. Despite their public differences, both Crockett and Leavitt later admitted in separate interviews that the lawsuit had changed them. They described sleepless nights, threats, and emotional tolls. Though still politically opposed, they both acknowledged the shared experience of living through a media circus. It was a rare moment of mutual reflection, brief, but humanizing. Looking back, many questioned whether the $80 million number had been real or symbolic. Some legal insiders believed it was always a media tactic to draw attention. Others felt it was a genuine estimate of potential long-term damages. Whatever the truth, the number became a symbol of the magnitude of the conflict, a giant figure that captured public attention like a headline. In time, other lawsuits followed. A Republican official sued a progressive journalist. A liberal congresswoman filed defamation charges against a podcaster. Legal experts warned that political lawsuits were becoming more frequent and more dangerous. Some called for reform, others for restraint. But the Crockett-Leavitt case remained the reference point. It had opened the door. Eventually, the buzz faded. The headlines moved on, but the lessons of the trial lingered. Future politicians trained more carefully. PR teams rewrote playbooks. Media literacy courses used the case as a modern example of conflict escalation. Crockett and Leavitt had both survived the storm, but the system they operated in was no longer the same. Both women continued in politics. Crockett launched new initiatives focusing on racial equity, criminal justice, and digital rights. Leavitt focused on media reform and transparency legislation. Though they rarely spoke of each other again, their paths remained connected by history. Their names would forever be linked, not by friendship, but by the lawsuit that defined a political era. In retrospect, the lawsuit wasn't just about two women or even $80 million. It was about America's identity crisis, how we speak, how we disagree, and how we hold each other accountable. It revealed the cracks in our systems and the fire in our politics. And it reminded everyone watching that words still carry weight, especially when spoken on a national stage. Many asked whether justice had been done. The answer depended on who you asked. Some felt vindicated, others betrayed. But nearly everyone agreed that the case had sparked conversations that couldn't be ignored. That alone gave it lasting significance, far beyond the courtroom walls. It wasn't the end of anything. It was the beginning of a new chapter in political discourse. As new scandals emerged in Washington, the Crockett-Leavitt case became background noise. But every so often, a reporter would reference it. Every new political feud was measured against it. This could be another Crockett-Leavitt, they'd say. It became shorthand for high-stakes political drama turned legal battle, a case that blurred the lines between law, media, and influence. The trial changed how media covered women in politics. Headlines became more cautious. Editors demanded more context. Audiences became more critical. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Crockett and Leavitt had forced the country to reckon with its narratives. How we amplify conflict and ignore nuance. The media took note, and some even apologized for early biased coverage. For younger generations, the case was their Watergate, their Clinton trial, their Bush versus Gore moment. It marked a shift in how politics was played and perceived. Students wrote essays. Activists created campaigns. Artists painted murals. TikTokers reenacted the courtroom drama with satire and style. It became more than news. It became culture. Despite the tension, the case revealed something remarkable: the resilience of public discourse. Even when stretched to the limit, democracy didn't break. Voices clashed, opinions divided, but the system held. In that sense, the case became a testament not to dysfunction, but to the enduring power of debate, even messy, painful, confrontational debate. Crockett and Leavitt are still polarizing figures. Supporters admire their grit. Critics question their tactics. But one thing's certain: they each shaped a defining moment in political history. Their clash wasn't just a personal vendetta. It was a mirror reflecting the nation's soul. And that reflection will linger for years. As the years pass, the $80 million lawsuit may fade from headlines, but its echoes will remain in courtrooms, campaigns, and classrooms. It's a story about two women, yes, but also about a country at war with itself. Crockett and Leavitt were never just opponents. They were symbols of something much bigger. And in telling their story, we understand our own. In the end, the Crockett-Leavitt case wasn't simply about defamation or courtroom victories. It became a defining moment in modern political history, a flashpoint where free speech, accountability, race, gender, and power collided. Through all the noise, the lawsuits, and the viral moments, it asked a question that still haunts American politics today. How far is too far when words become weapons? The answer may never be clear, but the impact will never be forgotten.